Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. God doesn't always shout through thunder. Sometimes he just hides you from fools. Pause and let that sink in. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to be magnetically drawn to chaos, while others, without even trying, somehow walk untouched through emotional war zones, toxic environments, and manipulative traps? Here's a fact. Researchers have found that people with high levels of independence and self-awareness are significantly less likely to be targeted by manipulators. Why? Because predators only hunt prey that looks easy to confuse, and this is where the Sigma female becomes a total glitch in the evil person's matrix. She's not just hard to deceive, she's practically immune. But here's the twist no one talks about. It's not just her intelligence or solitude that protects her, it's something far more divine. Because when you carry a rare spirit, God doesn't just guide your steps. Sometimes he shields your entire presence from people who would have loved to destroy you just for sport. So today, we're diving deep. Not into clichés, not into recycled strong woman tropes, but into the raw, unsettling, divine truth. Here are 12 uncensored signs. God shields Sigma females from evil people, and why that should scare the darkness itself. Oh, and if you think this is going to be soft and feel good, you might want to buckle up. This isn't sugar, it's sacred fire. Number 1. God doesn't waste rare blueprints on the unworthy. God doesn't waste rare blueprints on the unworthy. That's not just a statement, it's a spiritual fact. Sigma females aren't just unique personalities, they're one-of-one designs, built differently, wired with a spiritual coding that's not meant for mass consumption or casual connection. They move in silence, think in layers, and feel the room before they even step into it. People don't always know what to call it, but they feel it. And when someone carries that kind of weight, that kind of divine imprint, God doesn't allow just anyone to get close. See, most people chase attention like it's validation. Sigma females don't. They live in a world of their own making, and that kind of self-possession doesn't come from ego, it comes from spiritual responsibility. When you're carrying something rare, something that isn't easily replicated, you can't afford to hand it over to people who just want access without intention. Evil people are opportunists. They look for cracks, insecurities, loopholes in your soul. But with a Sigma female, there are no open doors. That's not an accident. That's divine design. God knows what he's doing. He doesn't throw pearls into pig pens. He doesn't hand over power to people who only want to manipulate it. And he definitely doesn't let a blueprint as rare as the Sigma female be touched by hands that haven't been purified by purpose. That's why the wrong people can't click with her. That's why they ghost her, reject her, envy her, or try to tear her down. Because deep down they know they were never meant to hold someone like her. She's not difficult. She's not cold. She's just protected. Because what she carries is bigger than personality. It's calling. It's clarity. It's purpose. And that kind of sacred coding doesn't get handed to just anyone. God doesn't allow it. Not because she's better than others, but because he knows she's carrying something too valuable to be dropped, copied, or contaminated. That's why he shields her. Every single time. Number 2, they are not here to fit in. They're here to disrupt. Sigma females were never designed to blend in. They weren't built to follow scripts, play roles, or water themselves down just to be liked. There's something about their presence that unsettles what's fake, exposes what's corrupt, and shakes what's been too comfortable for too long. That's not rebellion. That's disruption. And that's exactly why God shields them. The world loves the obedient, not in a holy sense, but in a controllable way. It loves people who follow without questioning, who adjust themselves to avoid tension, who bite their tongue in the presence of power. But Sigma females, they walk in rooms and reset the entire energy without trying. Their silence speaks louder than speeches. Their questions cut deeper than arguments. Their vibe alone makes the wrong people feel like they've just been caught. That kind of disruption is dangerous to evil. Because evil doesn't want awareness. It wants compliance. It doesn't care if you're talented or spiritual, as long as you don't interrupt the system. But Sigma females are the interruption. They don't follow broken traditions. They don't play dumb. They don't pretend not to see. And that makes them a liability to darkness. God knows this. That's why he keeps them out of certain circles, certain relationships, and certain platforms, not to punish them, but to preserve their impact. He doesn't want their voice diluted or their spirit tamed. They weren't born to make people feel comfortable. They were born to make truth unavoidable. That's why evil often tries to isolate them, mock them, or silence them. Because when they speak, something shifts. When they show up, hidden things come to light. They don't even need to raise their voice. Their presence alone disrupts lies people have built their lives around. They're not here to fit into the system, they're here to break it open. That's why God shields them. Because disruption like that, it's divine, and it's not for sale. Number 3. They're dangerous to darkness because they don't need anyone. Evil feeds on dependency. It thrives when people need validation, attention, approval, or constant connection to feel worthy. That's the hook, the weakness it looks for. But Sigma females? They don't bite. They're not out here begging to be loved, noticed, or included. They move like they already know who they are. And that alone makes them untouchable to darkness. There's something deeply unsettling about a woman who doesn't need you, especially in a world that teaches women to shrink themselves just to be accepted. Sigma females break that script. They don't chase. They don't cling. They don't stay in places where their spirit goes numb. That kind of detachment isn't cold-hearted. It's spiritual clarity. They've made peace with being alone, which means evil has nothing to dangle in front of them. That's what makes them dangerous. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't need your praise. You can't guilt-trip someone who doesn't fear distance. You can't trap someone who's not afraid to walk away. And that's why God shields them, not because they're fragile, but because they're powerful in a way most people can't understand. Their independence isn't rebellion, it's divine insulation. They've learned that solitude isn't a curse, it's a weapon, a space where they recharge, reset, and reconnect with who they are, away from all the noise. They don't just enjoy their own company, they thrive in it. That's dangerous to a world that wants everyone to depend on it. Evil looks for entry points. Desperation, loneliness, insecurity. But when it comes face to face with a Sigma female, it finds no cracks to slip into, no thirst for attention, no ache for belonging. Just a woman who walks like she's already full, because she is. That's why God keeps her shielded. Because the moment darkness tries to manipulate her, it realizes it has nothing to offer that she hasn't already given herself. Number 4. They see patterns before they become problems. Most people wait for red flags. They need obvious signs, clear betrayals, or painful lessons before realizing someone's intentions were never pure. But Sigma females don't need that kind of drama to wake up. They don't wait for the explosion. They hear the ticking. They see the patterns long before they become problems. And that's not paranoia. It's divine precision. Their minds are always scanning, not in fear, but with a kind of intuitive sharpness that feels supernatural. They'll notice inconsistencies in a person's story, a subtle shift in tone, a fake smile, or a gap between someone's words and actions, things most people overlook or excuse. But Sigma females don't brush off those details. They connect them, they track them, and they quietly make decisions long before anyone else sees the storm coming. This isn't about being negative or suspicious. It's about being spiritually attuned. God has trained them, sometimes through pain, other times through silence, to read between the lines, to understand that not every compliment is sincere, that not every "I'm here for you" means loyalty. They've learned that patterns don't lie, people do. And so, while others fall into the same cycles over and over, Sigma females exit early. They don't need proof to protect their peace. They don't need a betrayal to validate their instincts. If the energy feels off, if the pattern looks familiar, they trust it, because they know that early awareness is God's way of sparing them unnecessary wounds. That's part of why God shields them, because He's given them eyes that see beyond the surface. Not just physically, but spiritually. They see not just what's happening, but what it's leading to. And that insight keeps them one step ahead of the enemy every single time. Others might call it cold. God calls it covered. Number 5. They are spiritually autonomous. Sigma females don't outsource their identity. They don't need a relationship, a title, a crowd, or a platform to feel whole. While the world constantly pushes people to find themselves through others, they found themselves in silence, in isolation, in the hard seasons, in the spaces where no one was clapping for them. That's where their spiritual autonomy was born. This is exactly what makes them a threat to darkness. Evil feeds off codependence. It looks for people who need constant reassurance, emotional hand-holding, or a sense of belonging at any cost. Because where there is dependency, there is control. But Sigma females are unshakable because they don't need anyone to validate their walk. Their source isn't people, it's purpose. That's a terrifying thing for manipulators and narcissists who rely on emotional leverage. You can't manipulate someone who isn't emotionally addicted to you. You can't control someone who knows how to walk away. And you definitely can't gaslight someone who already trusts her own discernment more than your version of reality. God shields Sigma females because they've done the inner work. They've sat with their own shadows. They've confronted their own flaws. They don't walk around bleeding on others and calling it love. So when a broken person tries to attach themselves just to feel stable, it doesn't work, because she isn't a spiritual crutch. She's a whole system. Her self-sufficiency isn't pride, it's alignment. She knows when to give and when to walk away. She knows when to pour and when to preserve. And because of that, she's not easily used, drained, or swayed. She moves from a place of fullness, not lack. And that's a rare kind of strength. That's why God keeps her insulated. Not isolated, but insulated. Because when you've learned to stand with God alone, you stop bowing to the demands of broken people. That level of spiritual autonomy? It's dangerous to the enemy, and deeply protected by the divine. Number 6. They don't bargain with the devil, even for comfort. Comfort is one of the devil's oldest tricks. Not chaos, not violence, comfort. The illusion of peace, security, or belonging. If you're just willing to stay quiet, shrink a little, play along, or ignore what you know deep down isn't right, that's where most people fall, not in the fire, but in the soft trap of compromise. But Sigma females? They don't play that game. They'd rather be uncomfortable in truth than cozy in a lie. They'd rather walk alone in clarity than stay with someone just to avoid starting over. To the world, that might look harsh or cold, but to them, it's spiritual integrity. They don't bargain with the devil, not even when the deal looks almost right. They know that any comfort that costs them their peace, their voice, or their purpose isn't comfort, it's spiritual blackmail. Sigma females carry a built-in resistance to false peace. They've learned that some smiles are weapons and some opportunities are traps with nice packaging. They've walked away from good jobs, long-time friendships, even relationships that looked perfect from the outside, because something inside them refused to play along with what didn't align. They'd rather be misunderstood than manipulated, misjudged than muzzled. That's why God protects them so fiercely, because He knows they won't sell their soul just to keep the room calm. They won't exchange their discernment for affection. They won't trade their voice for a seat at the table. They're not impressed by shiny distractions or people-pleasing politics. They listen to conviction, not convenience. And that kind of obedience, quiet, costly, and often lonely, is what makes them so dangerous to darkness. You can't bribe a Sigma female with comfort because she doesn't crave it more than her calling. She's not scared of storms if she knows she's standing on truth. That's why the devil can't trap her, and that's why God keeps her covered. Number 7. They're not meant to be drained for other people's growth. Sigma females have deep emotional reservoirs, hard-won wisdom, and a natural tendency to uplift others. But that doesn't mean they're here to be everyone's spiritual battery pack. The world has a twisted habit of romanticizing emotional sacrifice, especially from strong women. It paints self-abandonment as noble and expects the emotionally mature to constantly hold space for people who have no intention of growing. But God didn't design Sigma females to be drained in the name of healing others. Their wisdom is sacred, not communal property for energy parasites to feed on. Yet broken people often gravitate toward them, not to evolve, but to attach, to use their insight as a crutch, to soak up their energy while offering nothing in return. It's subtle, but deadly. And Sigma females, being perceptive by nature, eventually feel the silent tug of depletion. That's why God steps in. He doesn't allow their strength to be weaponized against them. Manipulative people disguise neediness as vulnerability, confusion as curiosity, and chaos as emotional depth. But the Sigma sees through it. And once she does, she detaches without drama. Not because she lacks empathy, but because she refuses to be spiritually pickpocketed. God shields her from those who come with their hands out, but never bring truth to the table. Sigma females are not emotional utility belts for half-healed souls who want comfort without accountability. Their presence is powerful, but not free. It costs something to sit at their table: honesty, self-awareness, and the willingness to grow. If you can't bring that, you don't get access. That's not cruelty, that's alignment. So when God blocks certain people from reaching a Sigma female, it's not rejection, it's redirection. He knows she's not meant to be drained, just so someone else can feel full for a moment. Her wisdom isn't meant to be milked by those unwilling to carry their own weight. She's not a healer on demand. She's a force, not a faucet. And God protects that accordingly. Number 8. Their boundaries are divine fences. For most people, boundaries are a practice. For Sigma females, boundaries are a presence. They don't just talk about protecting their energy, they are the protection. The way they move, speak, respond, and even stay silent sends a clear message. This space is sacred, and not everyone gets in. It's not just a choice, it's spiritual architecture. Their boundaries aren't built out of fear. They're not defensive or reactionary. They're built from alignment. A deep, non-negotiable knowing of who they are and what they refuse to carry. That's why you can't manipulate them with guilt, fake intimacy, or emotional chaos. Because their energy doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to truth. When Sigma females walk into a room, it's not about dominance, it's about definition. Their presence defines what is and isn't allowed, and evil senses it instantly. It tries to test the edges, to provoke a reaction, to find an opening, but it rarely succeeds. Why? Because their boundaries weren't built in comfort. They were forged in seasons of isolation, disappointment, and spiritual training. They've already paid the price for letting the wrong people too close. Now, they guard what's sacred like their life depends on it, because it does. These boundaries aren't fences made of fear. They're divine filters. God wired them with the ability to repel what's unclean, what's manipulative, what's disguised. And unless someone is carrying realness, accountability, and spiritual clarity, they don't get access, not even halfway. There's no almost with the Sigma female. You're either aligned or you're out. That's why God doesn't just honor their boundaries. He reinforces them. He protects what they protect. Because when a woman knows who she is and walks in that identity unapologetically, she becomes a territory darkness can't casually invade. She doesn't have to raise her voice or justify her space. Her life is a gate, and evil doesn't get in unless she opens it, which, let's be honest, she rarely does. Number 9. They carry ancestral codes evil can't decode. Sigma females are more than just individuals navigating their own paths. They're living vessels of ancestral legacy. Deep within their spirit lies a code, a blueprint passed down through generations carrying wisdom, resilience, and spiritual instructions designed to break cycles that have bound families for centuries. This isn't something you can learn from a book or pick up from a mentor. It's embedded in their DNA and soul, an inheritance far beyond the physical realm. Because they carry these ancestral codes, Sigma females operate on a frequency that evil simply can't understand or manipulate. Darkness thrives on confusion, fragmentation, and repeating destructive patterns. But when someone is wired with generational breakthroughs, when their very existence is a disruption to long-standing curses, evil finds itself baffled and blocked. It's like trying to hack an uncrackable code. No matter how hard it tries, it just can't get through. God shields these women fiercely because what they hold isn't just for them, it's a spiritual mission. They're walking proof that the past doesn't have to define the future. They come with protective layers, encrypted wisdom that defies the usual tactics of manipulation, deceit, and spiritual attack. Evil's usual weapons don't work because the Sigma female is operating on a divine frequency that rewires the game entirely. This divine encryption means that Sigma females often feel different, like they carry something heavy yet sacred. They sense responsibility not just for themselves but for their ancestors and those yet to come. They don't just break chains for their own freedom, they dismantle spiritual prisons that have held entire bloodlines captive. God's shield is essential because, without it, the weight of this ancestral burden would be unbearable and vulnerable to hijacking. But with divine protection, these women become unstoppable forces of healing, transformation, and generational breakthrough. What they carry is sacred, complex, and far beyond the reach of darkness. Number 10. They trigger darkness without saying a word. Sigma females have a way of making darkness squirm without ever uttering a single word. Their presence is like a spotlight in a dim room. Suddenly, shadows become impossible to ignore. Evil people don't always understand why they feel uneasy around them, but that discomfort is a reaction to something powerful and unseen. It's the invisible force of truth, clarity, and integrity radiating from the Sigma female, cutting through lies and pretenses like a knife. This silent triggering isn't about confrontation or drama. It's a natural effect of carrying an unshakable sense of self that refuses to be compromised or diluted. When Sigma females enter a space, their energy is steady and unyielding. They don't have to call anyone out or prove anything. Their mere existence exposes what's fake, manipulative, or harmful. That alone unsettles those who thrive on deceit and control. Evil doesn't like being seen. It prefers hidden agendas and quiet manipulation. But the Sigma female's quiet power is like a force field that repels toxicity without engaging it. She doesn't need to fight or argue. She simply is, and that's enough to send darkness retreating. This divine protection means she moves through life with fewer battles because many never dare to challenge her directly. They feel the risk before anything happens. This ability to unsettle darkness silently is a sign of deep spiritual shielding. God doesn't need her to shout or make noise because the energy she carries does the work for her. It's a kind of sacred aura that warns off evil long before it even gets close. In a world full of noise and chaos, this quiet but powerful presence is a rare and exceptional form of defense. So while others might exhaust themselves trying to fight or prove themselves, Sigma females repel toxicity simply by being who they are, a living, breathing disruption to darkness. And that's exactly why God shields them so fiercely. Number 11. God hides them in plain sight. Sigma females aren't interested in spotlight or approval. Unlike many who chase recognition, validation, or fame, these women move quietly, deliberately blending into the background when needed, not out of fear, but out of strategy. God hides them in plain sight. They're right there, visible yet invisible to the dangerous eyes that scan for weakness or opportunity. This invisibility isn't accidental, it's divine. God protects them by cloaking their true power and purpose in a way that fools the malicious. Predators often come dressed as admirers, offering flattery that masks ulterior motives. But when the Sigma female operates with spiritual wisdom, she becomes a ghost to those who mean harm, there but unseen, untouchable. Their quiet presence allows them to observe, understand, and maneuver without interference. They're like spiritual ninjas, moving through life's chaos without drawing unnecessary attention. It's not about hiding their light, but about protecting their flame from being extinguished or exploited. They don't need an audience to validate their worth or impact. God's shielding ensures that those who mean harm can't get close enough to strike. This divine invisibility frustrates evil because it thrives on exposure and vulnerability. But with Sigma females, what you see is never the full story, and what you don't see is exactly where the real power lies. They navigate life's challenges protected by a sacred cloak of subtlety, making them untouchable by those who seek to manipulate or destroy. God's hidden hand moves in their favor, keeping them safe while they accomplish what they came to do, often unnoticed, but always impactful. Being unseen isn't a weakness, it's a sacred defense. a divine strategy, and a powerful shield against darkness disguised as admiration. Number 12. They're spiritual mirrors. Evil sees itself in them. Sigma. Females carry a presence that does more than just fill a room. It reveals what's hidden beneath the surface. Evil doesn't hate them for their actions or mistakes. It hates them because of what they reflect back. They are like spiritual mirrors, showing the darkness exactly what it looks like when stripped of disguise. This reflection is uncomfortable, raw, and unavoidable. When a Sigma female walks into a space, she doesn't have to say anything. Her authenticity, strength, and clarity expose the lies, insecurities, and manipulations that others try so hard to hide. For people wrapped in darkness, whether it's deceit, control, or selfishness, this mirror effect is a threat. It forces them to face their own ugliness, often the very things they have spent years running from or denying. Evil can't stand being reflected back because it means exposure. The manipulator sees their manipulation. The liar sees their lies. The fake sees their fakery. And that reflection is powerful enough to destabilize and unsettle those who thrive in darkness. It's not personal. It's simply that Sigma females refuse to play along with illusions or false narratives. God uses this silent, revealing power as a form of protection for Sigma females. Instead of engaging in battles or confrontations, their very existence becomes a tool to keep evil at bay. This reflection makes darkness uncomfortable enough to retreat without the Sigma female ever needing to raise her voice. This unique ability to hold up the mirror and expose the truth is why evil hates them so much. And it's why God shields them so fiercely, because their role is not to fight with fists, but to stand unwaveringly as truth incarnate, forcing darkness to confront itself, and in doing so, protecting the light. In a world hungry for authenticity yet riddled with deception, Sigma females stand as rare, unshakable pillars of divine strength and spiritual clarity. They are not merely survivors, they are sacred warriors, cloaked in protection that transcends the ordinary. God's shield over them is not a sign of fragility, but a testament to their extraordinary purpose: to disrupt darkness without losing their light, to mirror truth without losing their grace, and to walk their path without surrendering to the noise around them. Their power lies not in aggression or control, but in a profound, quiet sovereignty that evil cannot penetrate or corrupt. As guardians of ancestral wisdom, boundaries forged in fire, and independence that defies manipulation, Sigma females embody a spiritual force so exceptional that they remain hidden in plain sight, untouchable, unbreakable, and fiercely protected. To witness their journey is to see divinity in motion, a living proof that when God shields a soul, it is because that soul is destined to rewrite the rules, shatter illusions, and shine relentlessly, no matter the shadows that try to dim their flame. If this resonated with you, and you want to uncover more truths that go beyond the surface, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community. Don't forget to like the video if you found these insights powerful. Leave a comment with your thoughts or experiences, because your voice matters, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Together we're diving deep, breaking boundaries, and shining light on the extraordinary. Stay connected, stay inspired, and let's keep this journey going.